Okay, so let's just load whatever. Thanks for following Jax1818. Thanks for following, I appreciate it. You're awesome. Okay, so this is a two different mods. The first mod is the vehicle mod, which changes a bunch of the vehicles in the game. The obvious one being the Highwind. It looks a little bit more like it actually looks in the cutscenes. And the other one being the world map. So this is like probably my favorite mod. It's really, really cool. The world map looks amazing in this mod. Everything looks just super duper nice. The mountains look awesome. I mean, the towns look awesome. Just all the textures look super, super nice. Like, look at Midgar. Look at how nice Midgar looks. And I just love this mod because this is what we all kind of had in mind when they announced, or even like back in the day when we thought how cool a Final Fantasy VII remake would be. This is kind of what we had in mind, where the game would be the same, but the graphics would be updated. Now, of course, this isn't like PS4 graphics or anything, but it looks nicer, and we've always kind of wanted a Final Fantasy VII that was the original game, but just totally redone. And this is like the closest thing we ever could have to it. And I have to give applaud to Square Enix when it comes to the Steam version of the game. If you've never played the Steam version, it's the version that I'm playing now, like that I just played, that we did the Emerald Weapon stuff in. And the Steam version is really amazing, and everyone always said, like, people comment on my videos and they're like, man, they just need to make a Final Fantasy VII with better graphics. And the Steam version is the closest thing to that we have, other than like these mods. They actually went back and retouched everything, and it's still the same graphics and all the same sprites and everything, but they actually made it look nicer, and they made the load times better. But the core game is exactly the same, with like 2 or 3 bug fixes that were all pretty good. Like, the bug fixes they made weren't even like they fixed the W item glitch. Like, they fixed bugs that were just bad that no one liked to see. So they just did a really good job with the Steam version. I don't think they get enough credit for the Steam version because it seems like no one ever plays the Steam version. And I highly recommend it, and it's very cheap. And it's really good, and I just really like it. But when they announced the Final Fantasy VII Remake, this is kind of what people had in mind, I think, when they first announced it. Is some kind of like Final Fantasy VII like this, where it's just redone to look better. Because, especially for new audiences, it's hard for them to get into some of these old RPGs, because they honestly look really bad. I mean, like, back in the day, it's hard for us to say Final Fantasy VII has bad graphics. Because back in the day when we played it, they were the best graphics ever. Like, we thought Final Fantasy VII was the best thing that ever happened. But nowadays, when a 12-year-old gets on Final Fantasy VII and plays it, and everyone has, like, goat square hands, people hate it. Like, it's hard to get into it. And I understand that. Even though I grew up with the NES, sometimes it's hard for me to get into PS1 games that I never played before, because of the graphics or just the way it's played. So it's nice to see people make like mods and stuff like this, where it comes close to being a Final Fantasy VII that younger audiences could relate to. And I think that what they're doing now with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, although I don't think it'll be a bad game, I hate the direction that they're going with it. And it's not because I hate games like that. I've had a lot of people argue on my videos like, oh, well, turn-based RPGs, you know, kids aren't going to like those, so they tried to make it more like Kingdom Hearts so young kids would play it. And I totally understand that. And I think they're wrong. I think that young kids can get into turn-based RPGs. I've seen many young kids get into Final Fantasy VII and a lot of turn-based stuff, and there's mobile games that are turn-based that young kids get into. So I disagree with that, but I understand where they're coming from. Like, I understand their desire to not make a turn-based RPG again and to make a more action-oriented one. I understand it, and although I don't agree with it, I think that they're their own company and they can decide what they want. But my problem is that when they came out with the remake, their entire advertising campaign was, we're going to bring back Final Fantasy VII for all those who loved it back in the day. That was their thing. Ooh, that looked really cool. The reactor over here. That looked cool. I never saw that before. But their whole advertising campaign was, we're going to make, and even in their trailer they said like the overdue promise is finally coming true, or whatever it was. I forget what they said exactly, but they were like, we're going to make that promise finally come true and make the remake that you all been waiting for. And then they make this one that's like good for kids. And that makes no sense to me. How can you tell your fan base, hey, you know that remake you've been wanting? Like, they geared it towards all the older people that played Final Fantasy VII as a kid. And then they make the remake based on people that have never played Final Fantasy VII. And I understand both reasonings, but you gotta pick one. You can't advertise it as, it's gonna be for all you guys that miss Final Fantasy VII, and then create it for people who have never played it. That makes no sense to me. Do one or the other, but don't like promise us one thing and then give us the other. I disagree with the whole action RPG thing for it, but at least it makes sense. Like, you can tell me, hey, we'll get more people into Final Fantasy VII this way, and it makes sense. But you can't say, we're going to make the Final Fantasy VII that everyone's been waiting for, and then make it completely different than what everyone's been waiting for. Like, for the 7-8 years that people have been talking about it, they were not talking about an action RPG. They were talking about a turn-based one. So either say, screw you, we're going to do it our way, or we're going to do it your way. But don't say we're going to do it your way and then do it their way. That's nonsense. So that's the only thing that I'm like upset about the remake. I still think it'll be a great game, probably be a lot of fun. I don't agree with them splitting it into 3 sections, but you know, that's something that a lot of companies do nowadays, so they're just trying to do it the way everyone else does it, I suppose. But I hate that kind of crap. But who knows? Maybe it just means that they'll make it bigger and better. Junon looks pretty good too. So yeah, here's this, and then also the submarine looks different. Looks more like a submarine. And the underwater looks pretty nice too. I don't know. I mean, there's not much to look at underwater other than, like, you know, the normal stuff. Like the submarine down here. I don't remember if this looks different or not. No, not really. I think the Junon underwater reactor looks different. So we can check that out. Yeah, so the underwater reactor looks pretty cool. And there's not really much else to look at under here. Good night, Hands196. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. So that's 2 mods. Then there's a bunch of other mods. The other one that I wanted to try out, is this one. This one makes like Emerald Weapon and Ruby Weapon look different. What else? Is the world models. We can get like a realistic looking cloud going on. So now we got a realistic looking cloud on the world map, which is cool. Ruby Weapon will also look different, but it's kind of hard to show you what he looks like unless we just fight him. Because he doesn't pop out of the ground, but like, see, his head looks a little bit more realistic and looks like his head. Actually, you can actually tell. You can see like his teeth and stuff, which is cool. Let's go check out Emerald Weapon. He looks a lot better. I always thought his sprite was kind of crappy. He doesn't really look like Emerald Weapon. He looks like a big whale thing in the water. Wherever he is. Is he even alive in this? Because I haven't seen him. Oh, there he is. Yeah, so he looks way better. Looks way cooler. Looks like himself now. So that's really neat. Try to get a face shot if I can. There we go. He looks pretty awesome. So yeah, that's this mod. I just always thought this mod was really, really cool, so I wanted to show it off. I just think it looks really great. So there we go. Here's our new squad. Cloud looks pretty nice in this one. He looks really skinny for some reason. I like the details on Red 13. You can actually see like his tattoos and his earring and his hair looks good. His tail still kind of looks lame, but you know, that's what you get. There's a good close-up of Red 13 there. So yeah, pretty neat stuff. I really like it. It's really interesting.